All right, we are rolling. I'm here with Bryan Norton, and today I'm very excited that you want to talk about this topic. We're going to talk about hustlers in the film industry, and surprisingly, they range in every level of it, from indie to Hollywood, sort of the Bowfinger type figure, and
Well, when you say hustlers, I thought we were going to be talking about like gay sex.
oh, that kind of hustler.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of that is involved because when you're trying to rip someone off for 5 grand, there might be some butt fucking involved as well, or any type of fucking. To be honest with you,
Well, you're talking about. Well, we were just talking about Judaism. Is it called shyster? Is that
the shyster, yes,
The shyster?
it's the
Okay.
shyster.
Yeah.
Because there were many times where I'd be invited to a meeting, and you go into it thinking like, oh, we're gonna make a real movie, and then you realize someone just found some assholes who happen to have a little bit of money, and they're trying to rip them off for like $5,000, and you're like, oh, I get what this is.
That's 99% of what's happened to me, or almost everybody. Everyone's got these kind of stories, unscrupulous stories.
Yeah, and I remember specifically, like, when I was first coming up, I was like 19, 20, 21 years old, and I got in with some producers, and they started inviting me to these meetings. And, oh, these are going to be big meetings. And then it turned out the meetings were held in their office, which also happened to be the lounge at a Marriott hotel in Times Square. It wasn't even like a separate boardroom that you can rent out. It was just a lounge lobby area where you sit, and they wouldn't get anyone drinks. Also, you might be able to get some tap water if you're lucky, or if it was a big enough client, they would get the Zoss water, a bottle of Zoss water for the table.
That sounds pretty good. I think I've been shystered more than you then, because
Really?
like wow,
Oh.
a Marriott. That's like
Oh yeah, no, it was pretty sleazy because when you're sitting there and during a meeting, some junkie walks up to the table and starts trying to sell some sex to the table, and I remember very specifically, and I'm like 20 years old, I'm still wet behind the ears, and I'm like, oh, this is definitely something I'm gonna be writing about one day. So this meeting might not get me to make a movie, but I'm definitely gonna write about this. And then when everyone at the table obviously said, no, sorry ma'am, we're not interested, she pointed to her cooch and was like, it's okay, I guess I just have to go get money out my ATM right now, and then walked into the bathroom and did not walk out of there.
she was trying to sell a 20-year-old sex.
Anyone at the table, she was selling it to anyone who would buy, and this was like sort of my
Mom?
yeah, mom, I don't need help with my career. So that was sort of my jump with both feet in sort of learning what the industry was, or at least what I was told what the industry was, and that was those meetings. It wasn't like sitting around the table, it's like, okay, this is going to be the story, who are we going to get as a DP, who's going to star. No, it was like, okay, so who has $5,000 we can sort of finagle,
Jeez.
to use a shyster term, the finagling, which by the way would be a great horror movie.
That's interesting that you as a potential director, that they were trying to get money from you. I mean, that's
No, they weren't trying to get it from me.
Okay.
They were getting it from someone else. I was just sort of brought on as part of the production team, and it was my education in sort of how to get the money from people. And I
Right.
was told, like, find people like this and get us money. It's sort of like, I felt like a broker on Wall Street, where you get in there and like Wolf of Wall Street, you're taught, like, this is how you shake these people down for money. I'm like, that's how I got to make it in Hollywood? I got to figure out
Sure.
how to squeeze people for money?
Oh yeah, it doesn't.
And I'm still not sure that might be the case.
I don't even think that goes all the way to Hollywood. I think even for low-level schmucks like me, but that happened. That happened even in the film school days. Film school. One of the ways to if you yeah, here's what I gotta say. I never vilified film school. I think film school is wonderful, and NYU was super competitive. But I am realizing now, and most people who have money, I think, really deserved it. But I look at the brethren I went to school with, and the people who were independently wealthy enough that didn't have to get consumed by student loans and do a TA-ship, and maybe the money to make a thesis wasn't necessarily an issue, because at the beginning they would tell us, start budgeting your thesis, it will probably be about $1,600 per minute. So you got people right after their third year can go into the thesis without having to work for a couple of years. Most of those are the ones who did really well and got out right away. I was still there 8 years later. I was already teaching by the time I hadn't even done my thesis.
See, but when you say it that way, if you're pretty much just paying for your own movie, why not just use your tuition? I mean, that was sort of my route, where I didn't go to film school.
There were benefits. There were benefits to being at NYU doing a thesis film, because one thing I learned is when you start casting, you can get good people, and they would say thesis only. So, and like a lot of actors wouldn't work with NYFA people. They said NYU thesis only, and even after NYU, to me at least, should have lost its credibility. That held. I could get meetings with agents of good actors. They were willing to do it. And also, as far as the mayor's office, and then with NYU, the reason to go is that you would hopefully get the Wasserman, and if you get the Wasserman, then. But there were strikes then, because you could raise money, and it's very hard if you don't know which people, or you could do it under their, what did they call it? They had a fiscal sponsorship program where you would get people to write the check to NYU for your project, and when you would take a certain amount, and then they would get it as a tax deduction. But even that became almost like money laundering.
So they're like an executive producer to every student's project.
Well, and the caveat was that they have an all for one and one for all, so they can decide that all the money that you raise doesn't go to you, it goes into a pot for other people who need it. And I know people who didn't even try who got some of that money.
That's definitely a scam.
It's not a scam.
It's like pooling tips, and you're just a shitty waitress.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. So especially now with everything being so politically correct, I would love to do an honest rant about what it was like at NYU during the heyday of that.
I'm surprised no student, like, their project was a documentary on that system of how money is sort of put together, an expose.
Or,
I mean, it's sort of biting the hand that feeds, but
right.
But it would be pretty damn interesting.
There's money for a lot of people, but there was always money for Bryan to borrow. And I came from negative nothing, but granted, I will say this. I did not want to make angry black films or angry lesbian films or angry gay films or anything like that. I wanted to do horror movies, so I can't. Oh, the poor white guy didn't get anything. But there were outlets for every person. I had my best friend George, like, quickly started to go by Jorge.
Yeah. No, it's definitely true, because now that I have a movie coming out,
Andrew became Andrish. I mean, it was when people say that some of that affirmative action was very, very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, now that I have a movie coming out, so I've been sort of talking with agents, and I've gotten emails back that specifically say, like, what are you?
Yeah.
And I'm like, beg your pardon?
Yeah.
Like, I honestly, just coming from a place of ignorance, I don't know what they're talking about. And then when I would ask, they, like, a specific email, I got back a list of, like, what they prefer me to be, which was like black, gay, Latinx.
Right.
And I didn't know what that was, so I asked my Spanish friends. I'm like, what's Latinx? So then they asked their white friends what it meant, and then it turns out it's like a new term for Latino, Latina.
It also means it's how they're gonna to sell you a little bit, and but it wasn't. Hey, listen, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I even got to the point of telling NYFA students, listen, if you have to play angry black card or whatever, do it. But when people start telling me, or they start kvetching about, how it is and the system is stacked against everyone, I'm like, dude, I went to Sarah Lawrence and I went to NYU. Fuck you. We had student of color spaces in the 90s. You might have experienced institutionalized racism, not at Sarah Lawrence and not at NYU.
Yeah, I definitely don't think, like, if you're not something, you don't have an opportunity. At the end of the day, it's not even about how good you are. It's about how you hustle and how smart you hustle. But it's sort of, because, I mean, let's face it, the way movies are made now, it's all about the event. What makes this movie special, and they need to be able to label it something.
I'm at the risk of, it's not sour grapes, because a lot of people tried a lot harder than I did. They seriously did. But I know a bunch of people who, who might have fit into a category, and they are doing most of my brethren from NYU, who was the non-white guy, they're doing very, very well. Or surprisingly a lot of women too. So when and I know that the industry is stacked against women. I know that women have a shitty end of the stick, but NYU always had an admissions policy where they wanted 50% women. If it was open admissions, it would be like NYFA, 99% men. But it's 50-50. So, but when people start complaining about how unjust that women don't get, it's like, listen, not at NYU, it wasn't that way. And they also had an award for best film directed by a woman. Yeah. Too.
Yeah. Listen, there's definitely opportunities, but at the end of the day, if a movie's not good, it's probably going to go to South by Southwest. Oh,
I have seen some shitty NYU thesis films that got a hand job because of
there's
of it just fulfilling the
quota.
well the everyone categorized by like like an angry black film that was like 20 years out of date and would have been a Mad TV parody.
Yeah.
But
that's the thing. I mean, if a movie is good and actually says something, I still feel that the audience has the opportunity to make something good. I mean, Amazon, although they're really tightening down on the Amazon Prime with what indie movies they're allowing, but, you know, for a good couple of years, anybody with a movie had the opportunity to sort of just drop it in the ethos and let the audience sort of pick and choose.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you know, that's where the cream rises to the top.
Yeah, well, if they can find the cream, you know. But I do think sometimes people need to be told what to like. We've always had the case at NYU, and I'm this too. I had I had done a thriller from one of my second year films. There's a little poster for it somewhere around here. And I remember
Bacon?
Yeah, one of my teachers said, like, I forgot, it was the writing teacher. She's like very condescending to it, and then I got the Wasserman for it, and I won Best Screenplay, went to Sundance, and then suddenly she was like, no, I'm not even saying it was good, but
production value was amazing on that thing.
But no, it's a cute little story with an ending, but and it's amazing that changed her opinion.
Well, there's the same story about Tarantino where no one gave a shit about his script, and then as soon as, this was even before Reservoir Dogs, as soon as True Romance came out,
sure, they wanted
all of a sudden everybody, the same agent who passed on his script was like, oh, this is amazing. He's like, well, you know, you read this, you passed on it. It's like, no, someone else. We give it to readers. I fired that dude, you know? And that's going back to the sort of hustler mentality.
Sure. Well, what did Bruce Willis say? The difference when he became famous, suddenly all his same jokes got a lot funnier.
Yeah, so, it's, you know, and talking about the hustlers, we talk about the people who are trying to come up and make the movies, and whether we like the movies or agree with the movies or not, they're still actually trying to do something admirable, at least from our perspective as filmmakers. They're trying to tell a story, they're trying to make a movie. And then they, you know, I didn't go to film school. I sort of just got dropped into the indie world. And what they come across is something I already had experience with. Some guy selling headshots, you know, that's his hustle, that's his business. Where, you know, usually he sells it for $500, you know, but if you blow him, he'll give you a set of headshots for $250. Oof, and you know, there's so much of that out there, and I've had people call me and be like, so between you and me, you know, I don't want this to get out, but you know, this guy said he'll do the headshots and he'll do it for less if I just do some stuff. And everyone's excited about it. I'm like, what the hell are you excited about? You're a cliche.
It's what is that? Selling a dream, or and I don't think I'm allowed to say it. 4 words, an institution of 4 words, but I mean that was an institution that preyed on that. You know, some of the for-profit for school places, and preying on people's ignorance. I would have people come up and say, "Well, if my son takes your 8-week class, is he guaranteed to make a movie for Steven Spielberg or something?" And I would be like, "Are you kidding?" And I was reprimanded for that. No, you tell them whatever. And people were so willfully ignorant. Well, wait a minute, I graduated the 1-year program. What do you mean I'm not guaranteed a job? Yeah. It was absolutely ridiculous, but I was a snake oil salesman.
Yeah. But that's the same problem with any college, with any sort of degree, where kids come out and they're like, well, what do I do now? And with film industry specifically, it's what can you do?
I would never imagine someone from NYU, USC, or UCLA actually complaining, like, why didn't I get anything out of this? And it's usually like a lazy person who will complain, but they thought just because they had taken it. Maybe it's the fact that it's not a competitive program. I don't know, but some of the stuff that the admissions was willing to do was so rapey. And rapey in the way that I ended up creating a class that I would give to everyone at the end before they would graduate, especially for the acting students, about don't fall for the headshot scam. from now on, no auditions at a private residence, especially women. Seriously, this is a big issue. You got some guy, if the $100 headshot is the $100 headshot.
Yeah.
And chances are it's some guy and he says, I'm going to make you look so beautiful, and you end up doing all those slutty little photos with the finger in the mouth. That's not what you need.
First thing you got to ask them is, how many robes do you own? If they own too many robes,
Exactly.
they're probably a hustler.
Or just people get tricked into the bad headshot, like the one split into 4 pictures: you as a cowboy, you as a doctor.
But that's something also, like, that's so easy to tell. If you're gonna give someone money, first thing, I mean, this is what my parents told me. First thing, look at their stuff, look at their portfolio, and people don't really do that. They'll work for a director and not watch their movies.
Even if they look at the stuff, if the people don't understand what the purpose of a headshot is, I've seen gorgeous girls get tricked into, like, you're gonna look so fucking hot, and they want to look hot, but the headshot indicates them in a way that I only can see them as playing slutty nurse.
Yeah.
And just stupid mistakes people would make. A headshot, no background, no environments. You know, a neutral headshot that can see. You don't want to get typecast because remember,
What are you talking about? That photographer's flat screen TV is a perfect backdrop.
do you remember when we would look at headshots, because we would go put the ad in and get like 1,000? I mean, how long do you give each one? A second? So, and then I see people falling for the headshot 101 scams.
Well,
So-
everything's airbrushed also now, so...
Well, that's extra, but no, a nice, clean, neutral headshot where I can use my imagination to see you. Of course, if you're trying to sell yourself as only playing one kind of gangsta character or slut character, that's fine. But it's amazing how many people were taught that that's what they
It's funny because I
need to do.
come across a lot of headshots, and you can tell someone who's trying to go for a certain role. Like, this guy's trying to play gangsters. And usually they look the worst for the fucking role.
Yeah.
Like, they look like they're trying to play the gangster. And it's usually just a regular guy who happens to, let his hair actually be gray, looks like a gritty gangster.
Yeah. An amateurish headshot is always I mean, I used to save them all and we'd laugh at them and everything. But, maybe have 2 headshots, one that shows you in a particular way. I don't know. But I'm just saying that we had a lot of unscrupulous headshot people come to where I worked, and they would sort of leech around and try to get people. But the part I wanted to talk about when we're talking about hustlers is we would have people graduate from a pretty small fucking program, but they'd have their own equipment. So then they start selling themselves as a master director of photography, and let's face it, at our school, sort of, if you could afford to go, you could go. So most of the international students were loaded with money, the fact that they could come. And these fucking idiots, these former students of mine, would charge them thousands of dollars to shoot their NYU film.
And like shit.
And they wouldn't even read the script.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so what do you think of my student's script? It's like, oh, I don't read it. I just show up and do my magic. And and I would ask the student, like, what's the film about? I don't know, but we're shooting on the red. And that became an epic thing.
I actually lost out on a job because of the red.
If you make money shooting student films, you are not a professional DP.
No.
And I watched some, and I noticed you talk about egos with actors or directors. No, nothing compares to the film student who suddenly wants to become a DP, and if they think they're a DP, it's like being a life coach. Oh, I have a business card.
Yeah.
No, I have a red and a business card. I'm a professional.
And
No.
I always ask them, like, what lenses are you using? And they're like, oh, the lens that it came with, the red lens. I'm like, you're a DP.
Yes.
And, like, you don't know anything about lenses. You don't know anything about close focus, about sort
and
of aperture.
They don't want to. They
anything.
want to show up and do their stuff because it's something that not
It's 4K.
necessarily.
It's 4K. That's all that
4K,
matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they'll sell them on a very little. But again, it's like it's you hanging outside of the low end place, just hustling.
Yeah.
For customers, and a lot of it. My Asian students were the ones who would get picked for this. And I went to the boss once. I said, "This has got to stop. We have to." And then teachers were getting involved. Teachers were like,
"Never.
I will shoot your movie for you. Don't tell anyone." And I got the office. And I said, "You can't. People are being hustled." And I got told to shut it down or quiet. Or one person that I'm not going to name actually said, "If they're stupid enough to pay for it, then let them do it." So
that is the Darwinism of the world, though. to some extent.
This is why I'm never gonna go anywhere. I never learned about money.
Yeah.
And it's like,
well, because I
actually left that job because it was so unscrupulous, and if I had no scruples, it would have been fine. I was making mad.
That's Hollywood,
money.
baby. That's Hollywood.
It's not Hollywood. When anyone can say the worst thing that happened in Hollywood at the place that you and I are talking about, I had worse.
Yeah, it's very possible.
No, I did.
Like I said, I saw on Facebook because, you know, in this day and age, you sort of have to be your own publicist. You have to promote yourself. And I see, like, the type of DP you're talking about, showing pictures of them filming someone's music video, and they're using a parking meter as a tripod, balancing a camera, a DSLR, a photo camera, which is sort of doubling now as a film camera. And everyone says, is it full frame? Is it full frame? Not actually knowing what full frame is. Using a parking meter as a tripod, and it gets like 100 likes, and you're like, yeah, because this is how we do. And I'm like, how you do what? Like,
that's funny.
And someone's giving them money to shoot that thing, and they think it's a good idea to promote themselves like that.
I will never look at a DP reel again. Because they're usually just the best shots. I've looked at DP reels that those guys amazing shots, and then you find out that like 4 of the movies that those shots are from were never even finished because he was so far behind, or she was so far behind. So
well, that can also fall on the director. Like I said,
I know.
No one really watches the work.
I would usually try to contact the director and see if this person is a team player rather than instantly fighting with your idea, like, yo, you want to do my job? Want to do my job? I mean,
but you know, at the end of the day, like, yeah, I talk shit on these people, but they're just trying to eat in a very vicious industry. I guess my issue is when that's sort of all they're hoping to do. Like, if that's the ends to the means to make their movie, like if they have to hustle, if they have to do this sort of sleazy shit to sort of put together money, put together a team to get their own project, which they really believe in, then okay. But if that sort of just becomes the business,
I don't know if I don't see you as a person who could screw me out of something. I don't think that you would be able to sleep well at night.
Only your time, Mr. Norton.
I honestly don't. Some of these people, it's just like they will do it. The unbelievable stories I've had. I've tried to get people.
I mean, define screw
fired.
Because whenever I do anything, it's the end result is never money. Like you said, we don't know about money. My end result is the movie, and that's why anyone who works on a project of mine, I like you said, you can't guarantee. I'm not going to guarantee you're going to make money with the points you have in this movie.
Won't even read the student's script. They won't even. They just want to go and they just want to do a couple of cool shots, and they get paid a ridiculous amount of money. And then it's like next and next and next. And I understand you want to build your own thing, but but there is no progression. It's just making money. And I mean, I'm sure it's like working on a student film is hard and boring, but these people make a
lot of them
really
do suck. I will be honest with you. I'd say
course.
90% of movies in general are just garbage.
And you know that 99% of the film students are probably more interested in what format we're shooting it on and what's it going to look like rather than what's it going to be about. So again, preying on that ignorance, and I had been cast in the role to sort of prey on the ignorance in order to recruit people, which I just refuse to do.
But you do deliver. I mean, when you're going to learn,
I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, but all you're supposed to get from you as a teacher is an education, and you did deliver that education.
Yeah, but I had to balance it with or compensate for these other glaring.
You had you want to be a star, a big, bright, shining star moment?
No, not even that. No? Just
people
seeing the literature that they had been sent, and compared to what it's going to be like when you first get there, and then I'd have to say, well, this is like this at everyone. This is at every school.
Is it like a picture of Tom Cruise and Will Smith, and then like a little cutout? You over here.
No, it was a picture of like Jackie Chan and. What a funny black guy, whatever, both wearing the jackets and next to a 35mm camera and people literally being sort of tricked into thinking that was the first day, and then I have to be the bad guy to tell them, well, number one, that's ridiculous, number two, but that's just not how you learn film. Yeah. There's no way no school will do that. And then I would have to say, NYU, you don't touch a 35mm camera.
But here's the thing also, I mean, people should be a little realistic also. If they're going there for a film education, obviously you want to have some sort of output for that education.
Yes.
But you're not just going to skip ahead and be like, oh, look at me, I'm a Hollywood bigwig.
But here's the difference. I've had some amazing students, but like I said, and this is no disrespect, this is just how it is. And
you had an amazing student sitting right here across from
right, but this is, and I'm going to steadfastly stick to this fact. One of the directing 101, first day, somebody in this room raised their hand and tell me what a director does as far as the job requirement of, say, like a union director. Never, 14 years of teaching, never has anyone gotten that correct. So you would think that there would be some expectations. Most regular people, if I was to talk to regular people in the street, they might not know the difference between director and producer. When you tell people that the producer gets the Oscar, they're like, what? Like the producer can win the Oscar and the director wasn't even nominated. What? Or you tell them the Tim Burton thing.
In their defense, it is ridiculous.
Yes,
I mean, how many times have movies been nominated for Best Picture but not Best Director? And the movie is notoriously,
it
so
says
crafted.
From Tim Burton, who probably never saw the movie because he's...
Or executive produced by Michael Madsen, The Dirty Kind, coming soon.
But, you could say that is a hustle.
That is a hustle.
That is a hustle.
That absolutely is a hustle.
Get people to go into the theater. And then you got these idiots saying like, "Oh, do you like Burton? Do you like Burton's latest?" And it's like, and then you have to sound like that asshole who hates Christmas. Like, well, it's not really his movie. It's just his company.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the fact that Michael Madsen signed on as executive producer for my movie, it's absolutely a hustle. But at the same time, like you said, people need to be told sometimes what to watch. So
Absolutely.
If I just say The Dirty Kind, it doesn't mean as much as saying Mr. Blonde. Mr. Blonde, Michael Madsen liked this movie.
He's in one of mine. I'm not even gonna tell you, but he's in one of mine. That's how you're at the.
Is it long hair Michael Madsen or short hair Michael Madsen?
It is.
I prefer short hair Michael Madsen.
Drunk Michael Madsen. It's sort of in between, but that's how low I go. So
with the Michael Madsen cameo.
Not even cameo.
It wasn't even a one-day shoot?
No.
He just drove by, rolled down the window?
No, he's in it. So, yeah.
That was an experience. And that's another thing.
But
we talk about hustlers, actors who sort of had a heyday and then spend the rest of their careers sort of just, taking money from people who have their last bit of money just to put them in a movie.
Well, they get 10, something 20, out of it. I don't necessarily
Do they get
have
something
a
out of it?
problem.
How many actors show up, don't read the script, don't know, they just mail it in?
That's fine. I don't think
really?
that's fine. If that person is being hired because their name has some sort of ka-ching value for release in foreign territories, no one gives a flying fuck about Michael Madsen here. They don't even know who he is. But... and overseas, those kind of names,
I should show you the Albanian numbers for my movie.
Julie Corman was my mentor, and they would always they would get like a third tier name and pay them like $100,000 for like 5 days work or whatever, but those names meant some sort of marquee value overseas, even though they might not have had them here.
Yeah, but here again, we talk about what does a director do. If you're a director, your responsibility is that movie. Can you sacrifice a role knowing you're not going to get good acting out of it?
You have to.
Just to sort of sell it?
Oh my God, I'm low man on the totem pole, but I have never had carte blanche to do whatever you want. And I can hem and haw all I want. That's just the way that it is. This fake idea of what a director can get and what they're responsible for, it's a fantasy. Only like 10 directors in the history of the world have been promised it. You make compromises. You make compromises on the money. You make compromises on the actor. You make compromises on everything. Well, I want 10 songs. Well, you can have one. Okay, fine. So, yeah, it does.
So what you're saying is I should have had Michael Madsen in my movie.
Absolutely. I mean, would you say that your movie might compromise because you didn't have enough money to do something right? Or that you wish you had more money to do something?
It wasn't a money issue so much as was the money worth more than hampering the schedule, hampering the shoot, sacrificing the quality of the rest of a movie. Where when you're dealing with the movie like the way that I made with so low budget, there has to be a certain level because you're already starting with no production value.
Right, in a way, there has to be a certain level, but also just the way that things look and sound today, there has to be a good color correction. There has to be a Dolby mix. There has to be all these things cost money and they're invisible to the audience. And
Not in Albania.
you keep mentioning Albania, and it's a country that I learned a lot about a few years ago. I remember I had a total crush on an Albanian. I put on my Facebook status, Brian's I'm super frustrated with Albanians, and then like 3 people wrote, so is the rest of Europe. Like,
well, Albania, the reason as a comedy fan, there's something about certain words that are just funny the way they sound, and the fact that people know very little about Albania,
yes,
I think really helps, because at this point people sort of have some idea. You say Russian, there's the stereotype.
Right.
Albanian, there's still sort of like the little bit of mystery to what's Albania
here, but
here,
in Europe, I mean, my friends in Italy, they're like. Like they're the punchline, you know.
Yeah.
So, But all my Albanian friends are Albanian people I know. It's like they talk about being Albanian all the time.
Yeah.
And but interesting tidbit. But before I knew any of this, back in the '90s, I spent the day in an Albanian jail. I had forgotten about
in Albania.
In Albania. Yeah.
I definitely want to hear this story.
But just quickly.
Don't make it quickly. We're in Albanian jail. We got to go into full detail here.
Brian had a couple of very privileged years with someone that he was dating at the time, and that I got to go on this like crazy Microsoft guy. Who's the big Microsoft guy?
Bill Gates.
Another one. Paul Allen was his name, and he had this. He invited us to Italy or something out there. This crazy boat. So we fly into Sicily, and it's this boat. It's got like a helicopter, everything, and it was all for us. And
on a yacht in Europe.
Crazy jet skis. Anyway, we were like,
just throwing like dead hookers
going
off
around the dead med and like these awesome like toys and everything. And I guess we got too close to the shore and we got arrested. And here I'm thinking it turns out they just wanted money. They just, I didn't realize
it's all a
how
hustle.
Stupid.
Everything is a hustle.
I didn't know that, but we had gotten within like 2 miles of the Albanian shore. So, but
How much did they actually want? Because is it like Euro trip, like $20 sort of got you?
No. I think based on the size of the boat. I did not. That was a Mr. Paul Allen or someone else, so the celebrity.
Well, that could also be an international incident.
Yeah, but it was like a par for the course thing. They're not going to try to.
I'm guessing Paul Allen wasn't put in jail. They just sort of sacrificed you for it.
No, but there was just like it's like when you go to sue someone, if that person doesn't have money, then the lawyer doesn't want to take the case.
Yeah.
So if it was just me on a little wakeboard, they were like, "What are they going to do?" But when they see the boat you're on, now.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was my.
So pretty much Albania held you ransom.
Yeah, I mean, probably any country would have done that, but that was like, that was
not to judge all of Albania, just the 3 officers who happened to be there that day.
Yes. But I have 3 friends who are guys from Albania, and they all have that Albanian eagle tattoo, and it's a very proud country. It's like people. I would never dream about talking about. Well, I'm not a real patriot, I guess, but I just like talking so much about your country and your homeland, especially if you've never been there. I don't know. So,
yeah, that eagle tattoo. That's a thing. Sort of the pride. It's now that's a sort of whole different conversation. Like, what does that eagle mean?
Tribalism. There we go. But we should change the subject on that one. But I do have one thing fun to say now that I'm trying to stay current and, watching some of the newer shows on Netflix. And I watched one of them last night, the new sex education thing on Netflix. And delighted to see a name of an old friend of mine from NYU Film School. Nice. Sophie Goodhart is the head writer and creator of that show.
Oh, great.
And, there's hope for all of us yet because, she had done... she was just like us, hustling and everything, and this is her really big thing now. And how many years later is it that But this is the time. So good.
Well, there's no timestamp on anything. That's the biggest lesson people should realize. There's no timestamp on anything.
Right.
I know a producer director who just got a limited release theatrical on a
Yep.
movie, and he's in his 50s.
Okay,
and it's sort
yeah.
of the first
No,
movie.
of course.
So you get to that level. It doesn't
Absolutely.
matter when you get
Well,
there.
there's probably
It's-
been 100 false starts in between, but I
Yeah.
looked, and the credit she had right before this is a feature film. I forgot the name of it, but and it's got some famous people in it. And the credit right before that is her short film version, her thesis, and still trucking. So, but good for her. She's got a great show. It's getting good reviews. I
Yeah,
watched
that's where I
3
feel-
episodes. I didn't even realize it was Gillian Anderson from X-Files on it. She's amazing.
I'm
So
a diehard X-File. I have a want to believe poster hanging in my sort of home office.
you're the biggest nerd.
I'm a nerd, but yeah, the TV is sort of where I used to get kicks, and I still movies will always be heroin for me. But
Yeah.
where I used to get kicks from waiting for new movies, sort of became waiting for new movies in the autumn and winter, sort of the Oscar season. And now even that isn't as fulfilling. Now it's sort of waiting for like a new season of True Detective or
Yep.
or seeing something on Netflix, only because that's where I feel they're experimenting. My issue is, and Joel Cohen said this recently, like I couldn't understand why I couldn't get so into TV shows. Like what was my biggest gripe with them? And he said it best: movies have a beginning, a middle, and an end. TV shows have a beginning, a middle, and then how do we milk this for 5 more seasons?
Yeah.
And that's why I don't enjoy them, because you don't sort of have that end. You don't have that closure where you can then go back and think about this thing as a sort of whole.
Yeah.
And that's why my favorite TV shows now are sort of where it's either one season is a miniseries or a miniseries. Like Waco.
Right.
I really enjoyed Waco because it
Yep.
had that sort of beginning, middle, and end. Honestly, I think they should have just put it all together and put out like a 5-hour movie.
Sure.
Do a Once Upon a Time in America type thing.
No, it's been a game changer now. TV used to be, like, from what I understand, for actors and directors, was the embarrassment or the punishment. Now that's the brass ring.
I was just talking to the DP of Crazy Rich Asians, and most of his career has been television. He actually did Orange is the New Black,
Yeah.
True Detective, 30 Rock, so it's a lot of different genres.
Uh-huh.
And he said, when he was in film school, he didn't want to have anything to do with TV.
Yeah.
Everything was about movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then he sort of saw it as, like, I don't want to say failure, but it's sort of, this is what I'll just do for money for now. He got sort of some TV shows. But then after a while, you realize TV's becoming much more cinematic than a lot of movies. I mean, you watch a Marvel movie, and not to knock any of the Marvel movies, but you were the one who always taught, if the camera's moving, why is it moving?
Yeah.
What's the point of it moving? You watch a TV show, you see a lot more film theory, a lot more sort of using the dynamic camera, using all the tools available, as opposed to just using money to make something look expensive.
Oh yeah, I think even if it's a shitty show, the chances that you've made it far enough to be welcomed as a director on there, you probably know your stuff. And let's face it, TVs are 16:9 now. You got shows shot in 2:3:5:1, and the director composes for that format. And
You have David Fincher, Martin Scorsese making
Yeah.
TV shows.
Absolutely.
I mean,
So-
and why are they going? Because they have an opportunity to experiment.
well, and money.
But that's what it is, the opportunity to experiment. If someone's giving you money to do something, if you're a director and you're not getting the money to make the movie you want to make, but you have this wacky idea for a TV show and they're letting you do it, that's sort of what 1970 Hollywood was, where it's like, give them $1 million, let's see what this movie is, and then it ends up being the Last Picture show.
Who knows? Maybe all this stuff will implode on itself too. I don't know.
Well, I definitely think movies are coming back because, I mean, you look at the 60s where the studio system almost collapsed. It's
Yeah.
always ebbs and flows. I'm afraid theaters are on their way out, and,
Yeah,
and you need that communal experience.
Just like we were talking about, like the showering with old
Oh, yeah, we
naked
were talking
Asian
about
men at the YMCA.
A little pretext. Yeah, we were talking. Brian here signed up for the Y, and we were talking about the awkwardness of communal showers and
Yes,
steam
especially
rooms.
when they have a nickname for you behind your back. Called
Yeah.
the little Jew. But
Brian got the nickname the Little Jew.
I
Brian
don't know.
isn't
You
Jewish.
got the nickname. No, I'm just joking.
I am the Little Jew.
Oh no! But no, who knows what's gonna happen? You know what I didn't realize is that all these Netflix original movies, it's the same thing. They were just movies that were out there that didn't have a distribution. Netflix picked them up. I don't think
James Gray, one of my favorite directors,
I don't
The
think-
Lost City of Z. That's what happened. He made a movie, and then Amazon sort of said, "Let's make this an Amazon
Right.
movie," and then
Right.
put it out on Amazon.
Sure. Okay, but it makes it look like it was made for
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
But no, it was
But
just
they're starting. They are starting.
They are
to
starting with
invest.
original content. Yeah.
They are starting, and that's actually where it's hurting other filmmakers, because if Netflix is making a movie for Martin Scorsese, investing that money, it's becoming the same thing that happened in Hollywood, where, well, if we're giving one guy $150 million, we're not going to give 50 people $50 million to sort of experiment.
But, something going right to Netflix now is a great deal. I mean, it's not... Back in the day, it used to be like, wow, that went right to video. Ooh, now that is for you to go to video, that's amazing. Yeah. For you to go right to, like, Bird Box.
Bird Box. I was just going to say Bird Box.
Jesus Christ.
If you're a meme, you're successful.
Everyone on the planet watched that movie. Yeah. And imagine Bird Box, if it came out in the theater at a certain time, it would have been lost in... a Batman playing on 4 screens, and Birdman would get one.
Here's the thing: if Bird Box came out right now theatrically, I don't feel it would have made above a certain amount of money. Yeah. It still would have been successful, but because it didn't make $300 million, it would have been considered a failure. Yeah. And then when it would have gone to Netflix or HBO, right, I don't think it would have had as big of an impact. So yeah, I think Netflix, because it went to that platform, actually helped the movie.
Sure, I do too. And I mean, it was I had never heard of it. It was, I'll be honest, it was everyone talking about it that made me look into it, and it was there. Is anything enough to get my fat lazy ass off to the theater to see it? Probably not anymore. But
I mean, I don't know. I still, certain directors, I felt like if Paul Thomas Anderson has a movie coming out.
That's the difference between you and me. You know me, I'm the anti-auteurist.
Oh my God. I saw Phantom Thread 2 days in a row because it was on 70 millimeter and then the digital print, so I wanted to compare. And no one's paying me to do this, man. It's just my own investment of time and self-respect. But certain directors I'll look forward to, but in general, that whole... growing up, you didn't even know who was making the movie. You just said, okay, I'm going to the movie theater Friday. Right. I wanted to watch this. It's sold out.
Sure.
What else is playing?
Absolutely. That's the only reason people saw The Thing, because E.T. was sold out.
The Thing is a fucking masterpiece.
Now.
I just want to say, it's... Yeah, but, and that was because of DVDs and VHS. Yeah. You don't really have that anymore. Fight Club was a bomb when it came out. Yeah. And then it became this sort of huge hit. And now that's pretty much what Netflix is.
Anti-hit.
It?
The anti-hit.
Oh, the anti-hit, yeah. I mean, and people forget that some movies were not big when they first came out. Yeah. A Christmas Story wasn't that big. It was only when they started replaying it.
But Fight Club was like a $70 million corporate cheeseburger. They just want you to think it was this misunderstood little indie. No, come on. It was...
I mean, it bombed in theaters, but then again, I think a lot of times when that happens, it's because of marketing. I really do. I think they sometimes the best marketing for a movie is don't explain anything about it.
But my thing with Fight Club is nothing against it, but some of the really interesting critics with who write very, very well, you got to read some of their writings about it. It would it's pretty spot on. It's a pretty smart movie if you're dumb.
Oh yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. I mean,
and now people are like, you just didn't understand it. No, unfortunately, I did understand it. Jokes about consumerism and IKEA and everything. I think the problem is it's just
But does it have to be smart? I mean, movies in general.
People think it's a really smart movie.
Oh, absolutely. But that's every movie.
And that's all I'm gonna say, because I know that Fight Club, I wouldn't have a job if it wasn't for Fight Club, because Fight Club was the Citizen Kane. Fight Club made the film school I worked for so much money because I got guys 18 to 24 only came there because of Fight Club. And nothing against it, but that's what it is.
Yeah, but then you rent a movie to one of those people and they're like, the sun doesn't rise and set on Fight Club.
If you Fight Club with a lot of idiots was getting credit for doing things that other movies do, but just in an invisible way. I mean, it was, it's like Donnie Darko being an art film. It's like, okay, it's a mall art film,
Yeah, I totally agree. But then again, a lot of art films are just really fucking pretentious and boring.
Yeah.
So yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with the entertainment value.
No, I know. I mean,
but then again, I mean, the movies that I sort of look at and I'm like, people really like this. What was the movie with John Krasinski? Was it called A Quiet Place? Where there's no sound? In my mind, I'm like, so no one farts? Like, what like, there's just certain noises. And watching that movie, because I give every movie a chance. I went in there, and I saw it on a big screen. I go into every movie with an open mind. And throughout the entire movie, every thought in my mind where I'm like, this is stupid,
Yeah.
it didn't calm any of those fears. Like, everything that I was thinking about, I'm like, they didn't answer that question.
Yeah, why didn't they just go move by the river if you're allowed to talk there?
Yeah, well, but then again, it's sort of like Signs, which I still fucking love. I still think it's a masterpiece.
Too, but why would you invade a planet that's water?
All water.
Yeah.
But that's how, like, when I look at a movie like that, I'm like, what did he do that the movie is so good that the whole twist ending is fucking retarded, but you still love it?
Just to clear it up, I have nothing against Fight Club. It's my observation as a film teacher. It made my job a living hell. It's
been a lot of years. I don't think the Fight Club gangs are out there waiting to beat you down for talking shit on it.
We learn about subtext and everything like that, and there's this thought that, like, wow, this movie's got all this stuff. Like, well, every movie has it, but also the ultimate thing, if you really want to smack the dick out of some kid's mouth a little bit, you tell them that, like, Fight Club's the gayest movie ever made, and here are the reasons why. And then they're like, what? No, that movie's not gay. That movie's the most homoerotic.
Well, that was Tarantino's review of Top Gun.
Well, you know what? I have never seen Top Gun, but for some reason it was on Facebook. Someone posted a volleyball clip of it. That thing is fucking hilarious. Yeah. It's a song called "Playing with the Boys." But again, no homo, but it's just homoerotic, which is funnier.
Yeah, I mean, and again, but I think it's sort of getting to a point, like we were talking about this before we started recording, where there's something about guys, when you get to a certain age, you start drinking with each other, you start relaxing.
Yeah.
Where you do sort of get those bonds. It doesn't mean you want to fuck each other.
Right.
But there is that sort of, you know, you're my bro.
Right.
It is a relationship to some extent, and I think that movie tapped into it.
I think it, yeah. Yeah, and that's that. Well, would it really have to be that movie? Because that's what, like, sports and everything's about. But it's just some of the stuff in Fight Club is, you know,
the whole movie is about hazing.
Well, we make fun of consumerism and corporate cheeseburgers, but that's what a lot of movies do. Why did that movie get?
Well, that was the original Dawn of the Dead.
Of course, and you try
they're
to tell
trapped in a
people
mall.
that they're trapped in a mall, and they want everything for themselves, and ultimately what destroys them is their greed because they don't want to share, and that's called the subtext. That's why I hated Walking Dead, because everyone's like, "No, Brian, this isn't really about zombies. It's about people," and I'm like, "That's what every fucking asshole says." Of course,
that's what every zombie movie is.
It's called subtext.
That's what the original Night of the Living Dead.
Absolutely, it's just so people are stupid. I remember some idiot like, "You don't understand. Get Out. That movie has layers. That movie's got layers." I'm like, you don't know anything about movies, do you? That movie has layers, but that's kind of what your job is.
And
also,
if a movie doesn't have layers, then
it has layers. But
take
also,
that much time
I've
to
seen
make.
Stepford Wives. Sorry, I don't want to say that. I love Get Out, but don't tell me that doesn't have a lot to do with Stepford Wives.
I enjoyed Get Out as a comedy. I thought it was a very funny movie, and that's another one I take a lot of shit for, because I thought it was a hilarious movie. But then everyone starts talking about, oh, the little things, like with the Fruit Loops, where she won't eat the Fruit Loops with the milk. She's eating them separately, not to mix the colored and the white.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but that's what a movie is supposed to do. Someone who's
Sure.
actually going out there trying to make a movie. The fact that I can know to spot that kind of stuff means it's not going to impress me. What impresses me is just give me an interesting story.
I mean, if Get Out was out at the time that you and I were in class together, you know, I would probably point out, like, if you notice at the big party where everyone is there, like, everyone who turns out to be bad is wearing some sort of red. They're either wearing a red tie or a red scarf. But again, that's what movies do, you idiot. It's only because you're being told that this movie is the risen Jesus. But, like, look, they're all wearing red. They're all in on it. That's what movies do.
And that's not to say it's not a good movie. It's just to say, for people who've seen a billion movies, I mean, like, the best solution is not to berate, because you say, like,
what a director
to knock
does,
that dick out of someone's mouth. There's no better way to do that than to show them other movies.
Yes.
To show them movies that maybe are trying to do the same thing, but do it in a crazy better way. And that's why now, whenever, like, the Jaws thing, where you don't show the sort of the shark.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, Spielberg, also a lot of that goes back to the original master, Jacques Tourneur. You know, where they couldn't show the scary monster because they had no money to create a scary monster.
Right.
So it was all just working within the budget and getting creative, where now it's sort of become a technique, and when someone does it, they're a fucking genius.
Yeah.
And they're just a student of cinema, which is what they're supposed to be.
Or people are stupid. I don't even know if you can do that anymore. Like, I don't believe anymore, because of the way that we have been desensitized. This is why when I've sat in on some of the teachers teaching, and again, they're not going off book. They're saying the same old moldy things film professors have been saying, but like what the audience can't see is scarier because it's their imagination. No, yours is a generation that grew up. You've seen Two Girls, One Cup. You've seen real people get decapitated on the internet. Anything's there. This whole what you don't see is scarier. No, absolutely not. I can tell someone, like 3,000 people died in this war. And I was like, oh, that sucks. But if you saw what 3,000 graves look like, that's a big thing. So I think Rosemary's Baby, yeah, we need to see the baby now. I think with Jaws, I don't think you could do a reveal at the end.
That's where I disagree with you, because I think the best sort of horror is where you don't treat it like a horror movie, you treat it like a drama with just a lot of creepy shit. I'm actually reading, because, talking about Jack Turner, I'm actually, because of you, I'm trying to get into the horror world. Like, really get into it. And the way I get into a genre is I start reading a lot. So I started with The Exorcist, just going through the checklist. I'm reading H.P. Lovecraft right now, and I'm reading a story of his, where it's sort of that same thing, where you don't see the monster, quote unquote. And this is through a book where you don't see it.
Yeah.
And I like the style because it doesn't sort of have that jump scare mentality. It doesn't have that sort of let's show you something disgusting.
Sure.
It taps into something's gone horribly wrong.
Well, but also that can be misconstrued as what you're talking about makes it a smarter film.
I don't think any movie is smart, because I've seen enough movies, and this isn't to brag, but when you watch enough movies, you realize it's all just a train coming onto the screen.
Right, but when you're, I'm talking about the cable generation, like HBO and everything. When you're a horny kid, and you see a sex scene on an HBO movie that you're not supposed to watch, you can tell the difference between one that has nudity and not.
Yes.
And it can be very erotic and beautiful, but like, there's no boobs in there. And people are like, no, if you're lost in the eroticism, you won't notice. You won't notice her breasts. You won't notice. Bullshit.
No, you're going to notice it. We're humans. We have instincts.
If I showed Psycho now to regular people, they know that there's no gore. They know that they didn't see her boobs, and they didn't see that. And
I do agree with that.
Back then, apparently, according if we believe legend, that everyone thought they saw all this kind of stuff. So this moldy old teaching that what you don't see is just as powerful, that doesn't work anymore.
I do agree with that. There's certain stuff where, but that's just showing realism. You can't have that kind of movie and not have cursing. You can't have that kind of movie and not show, if you have to show nudity, because we're at a point where, we know how certain people talk.
Sure.
So if someone says, oh, this is fudging ridiculous, you're not going to believe it, and you have to get people to believe it at some point.
You might have, but back then, but don't tell me that Psycho stuff is going to play now. I don't think
they fell for it back then either, because if they fell for it, no one would have to, show the first titty on screen. No one would have to drop the first F-bomb on screen. The fact that Coppola said something fucking brilliant. He said, there's a lot of movies from the 20s that are amazing, but a majority of them look dated. Why do they look dated? Because a movie came out that made all the movies that came out before it look dated.
Yeah.
So the second people started cursing on screen in certain movies, now, once you've seen that sort of light, the Plato walking out of the caves and, seeing the light, you can't go back. Because you know what they sound like. You know what people sound like. Like, you can't watch Goodfellas and not have them curse, because you're just not going to believe it. Because at this point, you've already seen it, and you know it to be true.
Yeah. Speaking of Goodfellas, Goodfellas really bothers me, because that kind of violence really affects me. And it's very effective. If that violence...
You mean you don't like it, or you like it?
No, I love it, I guess, but it's not a movie I want to watch over and over again.
I used to fall asleep to it. It was my lullaby.
But if that violence in that movie had just been suggested, it never would have had any impact. No. Those guys are fucking...
But let me tell you something. It was suggestive, because what actually happened is far worse.
I know what's actually happened, but when you see Samuel L. Jackson get shot in the back of the head and the blood comes out his eye, when you see him Joe Pesci gets shot in the face, when you see that couple dead in the car with the slit throats and everything.
Oh, if it was suggested, it wouldn't have been as good. I totally agree.
No, I mean,
but then you start thinking about what actually happened. I read stories doing research for my own movie, and you start realizing, even the charming characters, because this is a movie, you have to make them somewhat charming. If you show Robert De Niro's character taking people's kids and putting them in a refrigerator and locking them in there until the person who owes him money goes and pay,
absolutely,
you're not going to find him as this charming gangster. You're just going to find him as what he actually is.
Right. I'm not. I don't mean to balance it about what possibly was real, but Schindler's List is a brutal movie.
Oh,
and I think if they had made that less brutal, it wouldn't have had the impact. People need to see that. A young person today does not have the ability. When you say 6 million Jews, they're not going to be able to see it. If you see that horrible stuff, it's much more effective, I think.
But let me ask you, if you know a movie is based on reality, whether how accurate it is, this or that, regardless, does it create more of an impact?
No.
You think so?
No, I think it has to be about
how
it's done and possibly what it is shown. I'm talking I surround myself with a lot of regular people, not film people, and I don't mean that as they're my experiment, but one of my things I pride myself on how people's brains register information. Now, why didn't that, when people laugh, that movie's just all jump scares? Well, why didn't that make you jump? Because 99% don't make people jump. They're just annoying, So there can be something with timing, but about what registers, how people's brains register information. And
Brian, you're wrong, and you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
That's all right.
I'm gonna bring up a movie, and I fucking love it, Fargo.
Okay.
The fact that movie starts with based on a true story,
right?
Out of respect for the dead, everything, all the names have been changed, whatever it says in the front, that changes the entire feeling of that movie when you watch. And there's still people to this day who think it's real, and I think that makes
it is, isn't it?
It's not Fargo. It's all fiction.
There was a guy who put his wife through the wood chipper.
It's all you can find any sort of situation. Okay. The movie was fiction, and the fact that it was a stylistic choice to do that, and I think it. I don't want to say it makes the movie, but when you watch that movie after that, it gives you a sort of chill, because in your mind you're thinking, you're like, holy shit, this can happen, to my neighbors.
People fell for that.
A woman. I don't know if this is true, but I read it might be an urban legend that a woman died actually trying to find the buried money.
Oh, jeez.
in Minnesota or whatever it was.
Not to be that guy, but Return of the Living Dead starts with, the following film is based on fact. Some of the names have been changed, blah, 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 blah. I mean, the old Roger Corman Tarantula movies, this film is based on science fact that has appeared in these publications.
Yeah, but there's a difference between a science fiction movie, even a movie like The Exorcist. There's a difference between something like that and a movie about something you read about in the newspaper every day. But the fact that it isn't real, it just makes it creepier. And I think that's what turned it into a horror movie.
Fargo is a great movie, but it's always been sort of a hipster, smug movie to me.
My mother hates it. We argue all the time.
Symmetrical shots and people with pregnant pauses in between. It's got the. If you needed to lampoon what a Coen Brothers movie would be, it has just as many Coen Brother cliches as a Hollywood movie would have.
Yeah.
But again, it's a thing. And
then again, these are the same people who made Raising Arizona. And that's what I always fucking loved, just being able to make one movie, like you said. A director is able to not just make the same movie over and over again, but
still franchise yourself with a name and a brand. And I'm not allowed to say their name.
We disagree on that, but
they are a corporation.
They're absolutely a corporation, and I can't argue with that for one reason, because out there making movies, you start looking at it as whatever you need to do to get your next movie made.
I don't believe that.
I don't believe that.
I think
for me, there's nothing more important than figuring out how to get the next movie made.
Okay, so reality stars, like a Kardashian, that doesn't bother you? Whatever you need to do in order to get yourself on the news.
But it's what we talked about. What are the goals? Are you doing that for the sake of doing something admirable, of getting this movie made, or is it just for being famous, just for making money?
I don't know if we asked her if she would if she would think that she's doing any less than someone else who's franchising or merchandising their name. I don't think so. But as long as we
Kim
admit
Kardashian versus Stanley Kubrick.
as long as we admit it is the thing. There is a stylist, there is a branding, there is a legal
absolutely.
person. As long as we admit,
But you yourself admit it. Sometimes people need to be told what to watch.
exactly. But it's not. We have to. I just want people to understand that this happens. It's.
Oh yeah.
It's not a ghost. It's not a ghost of a ghost.
But
I mean,
here's the thing with the entertainment industry, and this is what I tell everybody:
Some of
whether
it.
any documentary, anything you watch, if it has, unless you're watching it, and even sometimes if you're seeing something happen on the street in front of you,
Yeah.
be a little weary. But
Yeah.
anything that you're watching on TV, anything that has been filmed, that has been edited, the
Yeah.
second there's a cut, always ask yourself, what am I watching? And we saw it in the news recently with the Catholic school kids and the Native American. That is editing. That is using
Yeah.
film, to sort of impact the audience a certain way. And as someone who makes movies, someone who studied movies,
Absolutely.
every time I watch the news, I'm like, this is filmmaking.
Let me clarify. My problem isn't with them doing it. It's people's reaction to them and not realizing that it happens. They don't realize that when a director goes out and gets a PR agent, when a director ends up having to homage his or her own other movies, either through cast or the same music or whatever, in order to become a brand. I mean, they might make great stuff, but you do understand that those things don't happen in a vacuum. That is an actual business decision, And again, I was really good at tricking people into, like, in school, like, what do you think now? A movie will get a PG-13 instantly if you show someone smoking. It was like, fuck that bullshit. This is ridiculous,
true.
corporate America. And I said, but what if I told you that if Lois Lane smokes Marlboros in the film, that probably $3 million exchanges hands for those to be Marlboros? Well, that's bullshit. That's corporate America. Like, see? Don't you understand?
Oh, it's all a business.
Absolutely.
It's all a
It is.
business.
So they want to say that it's integrity, like Johnny Depp smokes. It's integrity, yeah. But you know what brand he smokes? Money exchanges hands, and people get rich off of that.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, I don't look at it that negatively because
I would
I'm
never.
not afraid of business. I understand
Yes.
the business side of it.
I think if I made a really, really good movie, which will probably never happen, but if I made a really, really good movie, I think having Bryan Norton Presents, a film by Bryan Norton, is not going to help. I think people are going to find it, or other people will do the heavy lifting. I think having that ridiculous ego slapped all over it is just gonna. I would never do it.
Well, let me tell you, if it had Michael Madsen in it, you'd be a star in Albania.
Actually, when I watch something now, and if it's no one recognizable in it, but if the opening credits are that, I won't do it again. I mean, you watch M. Night got that smacked out of his mouth. He used to have his name on it 11 times. Now that's gone.
Well, he lost it himself, and everything I
He
say
cut
is
it-
with
he-
love to Michael Madsen because the guy has been very helpful for The Dirty Kind.
I mean, M. Night slit his own throat with it, but
Yeah.
now I think the last couple posters is like from the director of so and so without even saying his name.
Which I think is a great way to go about it also, because at the end of the day, if you make great movies, that's your legacy, and you should be proud of it. So we started talking about Hustlers, and we ended up talking about Hollywood big shots. Is there really that big of a difference? I don't know.
Hustlers are everywhere. I've had people, money was guaranteed, and it never showed up, and the whole don't believe it till you get the check. Even from some people who might even be listening to this and have forgotten about it. But yeah, it's. I'm a nice person. I like to say yes to everything, but when you say yes to something, and then when the time comes to deliver it, I try to be there. But
Well, it's been fun. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up. I will leave you with this one note. I have a great project coming up. Do you have $5,000 available?
$5,000. If I had $5,000, I wouldn't be sitting here drinking light beer.
Brian, I'm going to make you a star.
Really?
I didn't tell you to take your shirt off. Put it back on.
Really?
20 minutes from now. That's when
Oh
you
my
do it, when I
God.
get the camera out. Okay, thank you very much for listening. We'll be back soon and talking about something, well, anything. Thank you very much.